My name is Carl, 34 years old, and I've built my life around family despite the complications. As a successful software developer, funding our annual Christmas gatherings became my tradition, my way of showing love when words failed. This year I'd reserved a $15,000 luxury cabin in Park City, planning every detail to perfection. Then came that unexpected call from Dad. "You're not invited to Christmas this year," he snapped coldly. "Fine," I replied, while quietly transferring the funds back into my account. Before continuing with my story, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, and hit that subscribe button if family drama hits close to home. Trust me, you'll want to see how this unfolds. I grew up in a modest neighborhood in Denver where keeping up appearances mattered more than actual happiness. Our two-story house on Maple Street looked perfect from the outside, but inside tension constantly simmered beneath the surface. My father George worked as a bank manager, a position that gave him just enough authority to fuel his controlling nature at home. Every decision, from what car we drove to what college I would attend, required his approval. He ruled our household with criticism disguised as guidance, believing that pointing out flaws was the best motivation. My mother Linda played the eternal peacekeeper. Whenever Dad's criticism became too harsh, she would swoop in with a gentle "George, please," or distract him with questions about work. She mastered the art of diffusing situations before they exploded, but never actually addressed the underlying issues. Over decades of marriage, her once vibrant personality faded into the background of our family portrait. Then there's my older sister Rebecca, always the golden child. 3 years my senior, she excelled at everything naturally. Straight-A student captain of the debate team and eventually a successful attorney, Rebecca received praise that I only heard in my dreams. "Why can't you be more like your sister?" became the soundtrack of my childhood. Dad never missed an opportunity to compare us, always finding me lacking. My younger brother Jason took a different path altogether. 5 years younger than me, he rejected Dad's expectations entirely. He dropped out of college to pursue music, bouncing between bands and bartending jobs. While I admired his courage to follow his passion, his financial instability became another point of contention in our family. Dad called him the disappointment, but at least Jason had the freedom of lowered expectations. As for me, I carved my own path through quiet determination. When Dad refused to help with college tuition unless I studied business like him, I earned scholarships and worked night shifts at a local diner. I chose computer science, fascinated by the logical world of coding, where problems had clear solutions, unlike family dynamics. After graduation, I climbed the corporate ladder methodically, eventually landing a senior developer position at a financial software company that doubled my salary overnight. Success came as a surprise to everyone except me. I had always known I could achieve it, but my family had become so accustomed to seeing me as the middle child, the average one, that my accomplishments seemed to confuse them. Dad would introduce me as Carl. He works with computers, reducing years of hard work to a vague description. 5 years ago, when I received a substantial year-end bonus, I decided to use it to organize our first family Christmas vacation. Initially, it was an impulsive decision, a way to finally contribute something meaningful that Dad couldn't diminish. I rented a cabin in Aspen, coordinated everyone's schedules, and even arranged for Mom's favorite holiday dishes to be catered. To my surprise, everyone came, and for 3 days we functioned almost like the family I had always wished we were. That first Christmas trip established a tradition. Each year I would find a new destination, always covering all expenses. Mom would call it Carl's gift to the family, while Dad would simply nod, as if my financial contribution was expected rather than appreciated. Rebecca would bring her expensive wine, and Jason would bring his newest girlfriend, and somehow we would coexist peacefully for a few days before returning to our normal dynamics. These gatherings weren't perfect. Dad still managed to slip in comments about my choice of rental properties or question why I remained single while less successful men managed to find wives. But these trips gave us all something to look forward to, a structured way to maintain family connections, without the daily friction of closer contact. Money had always been Dad's primary tool for control. Growing up, he would dangle financial support like bait, attaching strings to everything from allowance to college funds. When I started funding our Christmas gatherings, I naively thought I was breaking that pattern. Instead, I realized later that I had simply reversed our roles while maintaining the same unhealthy dynamic. I was still seeking his approval, just using my own money as the vehicle. Despite this realization, I continued the tradition, convincing myself that this year would be different. This year, with the perfect location and enough planning, I would finally earn the approval I had sought for decades. The luxury cabin in Park City represented more than just a vacation spot. It symbolized my desperate hope that financial success could somehow translate into familial acceptance. The search for the perfect Christmas venue began in July. While most people were focused on beach vacations and barbecues, I spent my evenings scrolling through luxury rental websites, comparing amenities and locations with the precision of a military operation. Park City emerged as the ideal destination almost immediately. The combination of world-class skiing, picturesque mountain views, and upscale dining options checked all the boxes for a memorable family gathering. After narrowing down my options to 3 properties, I conducted virtual tours with rental agents, interrogating them about everything from kitchen appliances to water pressure. The winning property, a 6,000-square-foot mountain lodge, nestled on 3 acres of private woodland, cost nearly $15,000 for our 5-day stay. The price made me wince, but the photos convinced me it was worth every penny. The exterior featured natural stone and timber construction with floor-to-ceiling windows that showcased panoramic mountain views. Inside, 6 bedrooms with ensuite bathrooms meant everyone would have their own private space. The great room centered around a massive stone fireplace that reached up to 20-foot vaulted ceilings with comfortable seating for our entire family. The gourmet kitchen boasted commercial-grade appliances that would make preparing our traditional Christmas dinner a joy rather than a chore. But it was the amenities that truly set this property apart. A heated outdoor pool and hot tub overlooked the mountains, perfect for evening relaxation after a day on the slopes. The lower level featured a home theater with leather recliners and a 100-inch projection screen, a game room with billiards and ping pong, and even a small indoor basketball court. For those seeking quieter pursuits, a library stocked with bestsellers provided a cozy retreat. After securing the reservation with my credit card, I created a digital invitation with photos of the property and a detailed itinerary. I sent it to everyone in September, wanting to give them plenty of time to request vacation days from work. Mom called within minutes of receiving it, her voice bubbling with excitement. "Carl, honey, this looks absolutely magnificent. You've outdone yourself this year," she gushed. "Your father and I were just saying we needed a real vacation, something special." I smiled at the mention of Dad, doubting he had said anything of the sort. "I'm glad you like it, Mom. I thought we could all use something extra nice this year." "You're too generous, sweetheart. Let me contribute something toward the cost." This was our annual dance. She would offer, I would refuse, and we would both pretend that Dad had nothing to do with her insistence on contributing. "It's my gift to everyone, Mom. Just bring yourself and your famous apple pie." Rebecca's response came via text, brief and predictable. "Looks nice. We'll be there. Andrew wants to know if there's good skiing nearby." No thank you, no acknowledgement of the cost or effort involved. Just an assumption that of course I would continue providing these experiences for everyone. Her husband, Andrew, a corporate attorney with an income that rivaled mine, had never once offered to share expenses. Jason's reaction proved the most genuine. He showed up at my apartment the evening after receiving the invitation, a 6-pack of my favorite craft beer in hand. As we sat on my balcony overlooking the city lights, he admitted that without my invitation, Christmas would have been just another day for him. "I got laid off last month," he confessed, picking at the label on his beer bottle. "The band's not bringing in much and rent's due next week. I was about to call Mom for a loan." The shame in his voice was palpable. "Stay with me until you find something else," I offered immediately. "The spare room is just collecting dust anyway." Jason's eyes, so similar to my own, filled with gratitude. "This Christmas trip means a lot, Carl. Not just the free vacation, but knowing someone believes in me enough to include me in family stuff even when I'm a mess." That conversation with Jason fueled my determination to make this Christmas perfect. I spent the following weeks coordinating rental cars, arranging for grocery delivery to the cabin, and researching local attractions. I ordered personalized gifts for everyone, items that required thought, rather than just an impressive price tag. For Mom, I found a locket containing photos of all her children. For Rebecca, a first edition of her favorite childhood book. For Jason, vintage vinyl records from bands that influenced his music. And for Dad, a rare single malt scotch from a distillery he had once mentioned wanting to visit. As December approached, I frequently checked the weather forecasts for Park City, relieved to see predictions for heavy snowfall the week before our arrival. Perfect powder conditions would surely impress Dad, an avid skier who had taught all of us to navigate the slopes during childhood weekends in Colorado. The $15,000 required for this vacation represented 2 months of careful saving on my part. I had delayed purchasing a new car and passed on a weekend trip to California with friends, prioritizing this family gathering above all else. The money wasn't just currency. It represented my hope that this Christmas would finally bridge the emotional distance between my father and me. 3 weeks before our departure date, I confirmed all the details one final time. The rental agency assured me that the property would be decorated for Christmas, including a 10-foot tree in the great room. The grocery delivery service had my extensive list of everyone's favorite foods. The local ski resort had our equipment rentals and lessons scheduled. Everything was perfectly arranged, a testament to my planning skills and desire to create lasting memories. If only I had known that none of us would ever see that beautiful mountain lodge. The call came on a Tuesday evening as I was finalizing some work projects before the holiday break. When my phone displayed Dad calling, I felt the familiar mixture of hope and anxiety that his calls always triggered. Taking a deep breath, I answered with forced cheerfulness. "Hey Dad, what's up?" "Carl." His voice sounded unusually upbeat. "Just checking in about the Christmas trip. Everything's still on track." This unexpected interest in my planning caught me off guard. Dad rarely called just to chat, and he had never before expressed curiosity about trip details. "Yes, everything's confirmed. The cabin looks amazing from the photos. You and Mom will have the master suite on the main floor, so no stairs to worry about." About that, he continued, his tone shifting slightly. "I've been thinking we should invite some additional people. My golf buddies Ron and Phil mentioned they don't have solid Christmas plans. Their families are great, and it would make for a more lively gathering." I hesitated, calculating quickly. "Dad, the cabin has 6 bedrooms. We're already using 5 with our family. There wouldn't be room for additional families. Surely there's some way to make it work. The boys could bunk together like when they were kids, or you could look for a bigger place." The implication that I should either compromise our comfort or spend even more money just to accommodate his friends sparked frustration, but I kept my voice even. "The reservation is already confirmed. I carefully selected this property based on our family's needs. Maybe next year we could plan for a larger group if that's something everyone wants." Silence stretched across the line for several seconds before Dad spoke again, his voice now carrying that cold edge I knew too well. "Actually, Carl, I've been meaning to talk to you about something else. Your mother and I discussed it, and we think it might be better if you sit this Christmas out." The words hit me like a physical blow. "What? You've been rather negative lately, always bringing up problems from the past, making everyone uncomfortable. Christmas should be a happy time, and frankly, you tend to bring down the atmosphere." My mind raced to understand what he was referring to. During our last family dinner 2 months ago, I had gently suggested that Rebecca might consider Jason's feelings before criticizing his career choices. That brief comment had resulted in Dad lecturing me about stirring up trouble. Was that what he meant by being negative? "Dad, I don't understand. I'm the one who organized this entire trip. I paid for the cabin." His laugh carried a dismissive quality that made my stomach clench. "Well, about that. I've already told everyone that I arranged this special Christmas for the family. It would be awkward to change the story now." The revelation struck me speechless. He had taken credit for my planning, my expense, my gift to the family, and now he was uninviting me from the very event I had created. Finding my voice, I said, "You told everyone that you paid for the Park City trip. Don't make such a big deal about money, Carl. You've always been obsessed with who pays for what. Success has made you arrogant. The cabin rental is just luck anyway. Right place, right time with that tech job of yours. Anyone could do what you do with the right connections." Each word drove the knife deeper. After years of hard work, countless late nights, and sacrificed weekends, My father had reduced my career success to luck and connections I never had. The familiar pattern clicked into place. No matter what I achieved, it would never be enough to earn his respect. I worked extremely hard for everything I have, I said quietly. Nothing was handed to me. There you go again, so sensitive about everything. This is exactly why we think it's better if you skip this year. Rebecca and Jason don't make everything about themselves. The irony of this statement might have made me laugh under different circumstances. Rebecca had never paid for a single family gathering but always dictated activities. Jason, while lovable, frequently centered conversations around his financial struggles. Yet I was supposedly the selfish one for occasionally mentioning my accomplishments. What about Mom? Does she agree with uninviting me from Christmas? I asked, already suspecting the answer. Dad cleared his throat. Your mother understands that sometimes difficult decisions need to be made for the good of the group. She trusts my judgment. Translation. He had presented the decision as final, and Mom had acquiesced rather than challenge him. Her peacekeeping instincts would have kicked in, convincing herself this arrangement was temporary, just this once. And what about the cabin itself? The reservation is in my name. The payment came from my account. Well, you can handle those details, can't you? Just change the reservation to my name. I'll meet everyone there. The audacity of this request momentarily stunned me. He expected me to facilitate my own exclusion, to transfer ownership of a $15,000 reservation without complaint. In that moment, I saw with perfect clarity how he had always operated, assuming compliance, because historically that's what he received. You're not invited to Christmas this year, he repeated with finality. I need to know you'll cooperate with changing the reservation details. Something broke inside me then, not in a destructive way, but like a fever breaking. The desperation for his approval that had driven me for decades suddenly evaporated, replaced by a calm certainty. Fine, I replied, my voice steady despite the emotion churning beneath. Good. I knew you'd be reasonable eventually. Have the rental agency call me tomorrow. Goodbye, Dad, I said, ending the call before he could respond. Sitting in the sudden silence of my apartment, I opened my laptop and navigated to my online banking portal. With a few clicks, I transferred the $15,000 from my vacation fund back into my primary checking account. Next, I visited the rental agency's website and canceled the reservation, accepting the partial refund rather than requesting any changes. I sent a brief professional email declining their offer to rebook for different dates. The entire process took less than 10 minutes, efficient and irrevocable. Only after completing these transactions did I allow myself to feel the full weight of what had just occurred. My father had not only rejected me from a family gathering, but had attempted to appropriate my generosity as his own. The pattern wasn't new, but my response to it was about to change dramatically. The hours following that phone call passed in a surreal blur. I sat motionless at my kitchen counter, watching the sky darken outside my window while my mind replayed decades of similar interactions with my father. The pattern was clear. Now my achievements minimized my contributions, expected, but unacknowledged my presence, tolerated rather than welcomed. How had I not seen it so clearly before? My phone buzzed repeatedly throughout the evening. First came Mom's text. Your father mentioned you might not join us for Christmas. Call me when you can, sweetheart. Her deliberate vagueness suggested she knew exactly what had happened, but preferred to pretend it was all a misunderstanding. I couldn't bring myself to respond. Rebecca's message arrived next. Her attorney's precision, evident in every carefully chosen word. Dad told us about your decision to skip the family Christmas. While we respect your choice, the timing is incredibly inconsiderate. Some of us have already requested vacation days. No mention of the cabin, the cost, or Dad's lie about who had arranged everything. Just an assumption that I was being difficult. Around midnight, my phone rang. Jason's name flashed on the screen, and I almost declined the call before deciding he deserved at least an explanation. What the hell, Carl? His voice sounded strained. Dad's saying the Park City trip might fall through because you're backing out. What's going on? I took a deep breath. Dad called earlier and told me I'm not invited to Christmas this year. Said I bring down the atmosphere and make everyone uncomfortable. That's bullshit, Jason responded immediately. Mom was just telling me last week how excited she was that you found such an amazing place for all of us. There's more, I continued. Dad's been telling everyone that he arranged and paid for the entire trip, taking full credit. Silence stretched across the line before Jason whispered, "What an asshole." I canceled the reservation, I admitted. Transferred the money back into my account. Wait, seriously, the whole thing is off. Panic edged into his voice. Carl, I can't afford Christmas anywhere else. I was counting on this. Guilt squeezed my chest. I know, and I'm sorry. But I couldn't just hand over a $15,000 vacation to someone who explicitly uninvited me from it. So you punish all of us because Dad's a jerk. That's real mature. The hurt in his voice was palpable. That's not what I'm doing. I insisted, though his words stung precisely because they contained a kernel of truth. Was I using money as power? Just like Dad always had. Sounds exactly like what you're doing, Jason snapped before hanging up. Sleep evaded me that night. I paced my apartment, alternating between righteous anger and crushing guilt. Had I overreacted? Should I have simply accepted the exclusion, transferred the reservation, and spent Christmas alone? While my family enjoyed the luxury I had provided, the people-pleaser in me, carefully cultivated through years of trying to earn approval, argued yes. But another voice, quiet yet insistent, suggested this moment represented a crucial crossroads. I could continue the cycle absorbing mistreatment to maintain peace, or I could establish boundaries that protected my self-respect. The second option felt terrifying, precisely because it was so unfamiliar. As dawn broke over the city, casting long shadows across my living room, clarity finally emerged through the emotional fog. I would not rescind my cancellation. I would not fund a gathering from which I was explicitly excluded. But neither would I leave my family without options for Christmas. With renewed purpose, I opened my laptop and began researching alternatives. The first search revealed local volunteer opportunities at homeless shelters and community centers. The prospect of spending Christmas helping others rather than seeking approval from my father carried an unexpected appeal. Further searching yielded information about last-minute vacation rentals, still available within driving distance of Denver. They weren't as luxurious as the Park City cabin, but they were affordable options I could share with my family. They could choose to book one themselves, demonstrating whether the gathering was truly about being together or simply about enjoying luxury at my expense. By morning, I had compiled all this information into an email draft. Before sending it, I made one final decision that felt both terrifying and liberating. I would spend Christmas volunteering regardless of what my family chose to do. For once, my plans would not revolve around their approval or participation. With trembling fingers, I pressed send, launching my declaration of independence into the digital void. The response would surely be swift and emotional, but for the first time in my adult life, I felt prepared to weather the storm without compromising my newly discovered boundaries. The email I composed that morning represented the most honest communication I'd ever shared with my family. After explaining that I had canceled the Park City reservation following Dad's call, I outlined the available alternatives without offering to finance any of them. I concluded with a simple statement: I'll be volunteering at Riverside Community Shelter on Christmas Day. You're all welcome to join me if you'd like to start a new tradition based on giving rather than receiving. I had barely finished my morning coffee when my phone rang. Mom's name appeared on the screen, and I answered with a deep breath, bracing myself. Carl, sweetheart, her voice wavered between concern and panic. There must be some misunderstanding. Your father would never uninvite you from Christmas. He did, Mom. His exact words were, "You're not invited to Christmas this year." Then he asked me to transfer the reservation to his name so everyone else could still enjoy it. He was probably just having a bad day, she offered, falling into her familiar role as peacekeeper. You know how he gets when his back is bothering him. If you call him now, I'm sure you two can work this out. This isn't about one bad day. It's about a pattern that's existed my entire life. Nothing I do is ever good enough, but everything I provide is expected without appreciation. That's not true, she protested weakly. Your father is very proud of you. He just doesn't know how to show it. Mom, he literally took credit for arranging and paying for the entire Park City trip. He lied to all of you. Her silence confirmed what I suspected she had known all along. He was just trying to surprise everyone, she finally said. Men have their pride, Carl. You know that. My pride matters too. My contributions matter. And my presence at family gatherings shouldn't be conditional based on Dad's mood or whether I've recently challenged him. Please reconsider, she pleaded. Rebecca's children have been talking about this trip for weeks. Jason needs this family time. Can't you just apologize to your father and rebook everything? The guilt trip was so familiar I could have recited it along with her. Everyone else's needs and feelings mattered more than mine. Peace at any price was the family motto, and I was expected to pay that price repeatedly. I'm not apologizing for something I didn't do wrong, I stated firmly. And I'm not rebooking a $15,000 vacation for people who don't appreciate it or want me there. We do want you there. Your father was just. Mom, I interrupted gently. I need to go. I have meetings all morning. I love you, but my decision is final. After ending the call, I silenced my phone and focused on work, grateful for the distraction. When I checked my messages that evening, I found a voicemail from Dad that confirmed I'd made the right choice. Carl, your mother is extremely upset about this childish stunt you're pulling. Canceling a family vacation out of spite shows exactly the kind of negativity I was talking about. I expected better from a son of mine. Call me when you're ready to act like an adult. No apology, no acknowledgement of his lie, just more criticism and an expectation that I would eventually cave to his demands. The familiar anger rose within me, but this time it was accompanied by something new: pity. I pitied the man who could never appreciate the family he had because he was too busy maintaining control. Rebecca's response came as frigid silence. No calls, no texts, just a pointed absence of communication that spoke volumes. She had sided with Dad as she always did. The golden child protecting her position in the family hierarchy. Jason, however, surprised me. 3 days after our heated phone conversation, he knocked on my apartment door, unannounced, his expression a mixture of frustration and confusion. We need to talk, he announced, brushing past me into the living room. What exactly happened with Dad? I'm getting different stories from everyone. I recounted the phone call verbatim, including Dad's claim that he had arranged the entire trip and his request that I transfer the reservation to his name after uninviting me. Jason paced the room as he listened, running his hand through his hair in the nervous gesture we'd both inherited from Mom. When I finished, he collapsed onto my sofa with a heavy sigh. That tracks with the Dad I know, he admitted. But did you have to cancel everything? Mom's devastated and the kids were really looking forward to it. I understand that, I replied, sitting across from him. But think about what Dad was really asking. He wanted me to pay $15,000 for a vacation I wasn't allowed to attend while he took full credit for my generosity. Would you have agreed to that? Jason winced. When you put it that way, no. But it still feels like everyone else is collateral damage in this fight between you and Dad. That's exactly how he wants it to feel, I explained. He's counting on family pressure to make me give in. If I rebook everything now, what message does that send? That he can treat me however he wants because I'll always back down. So this is about pride. It's about self-respect, I corrected. About setting boundaries that protect my mental health. I've spent my entire adult life trying to buy Dad's approval through generous gifts and family trips. It hasn't worked. It will never work. And continuing to try is just self-destructive at this point. Jason studied me for a long moment before nodding slowly. I get it. I really do. It's why I moved 1,000 miles away for college and why I chose music instead of banking. Different approach to the same problem. Exactly. You physically distanced yourself. I'm finally creating emotional distance. So what now? Christmas is 2 weeks away. Mom keeps calling me, crying about how the family is falling apart. The family was never really together, I pointed out. We just pretended during those trips and holiday gatherings. Dad controlled everything. Mom smoothed things over. Rebecca played the perfect daughter. You rebelled, and I tried to buy approval. That's not healthy family dynamics. Jason's expression shifted from frustration to understanding. And you're really going to volunteer at a shelter on Christmas? Yes. I need to break the pattern completely. Create new associations with the holiday that aren't tied to family drama. Bold move, he admitted. Not sure I could do it. You don't have to. The alternatives I sent are affordable options if you all want to still get together. Jason shook his head. Without your funding, it's not happening. Dad won't pay for everyone, and Rebecca only spends money on herself and her kids. Mom couldn't afford it on her own. The reality of his statement reinforced my decision. Without my financial contribution, the family Christmas simply wouldn't exist. That dependency had created an unhealthy dynamic that needed to end for everyone's sake. As Jason left that evening, he paused at the door. "For what it's worth, I think you're doing the right thing. Difficult but right." His support, unexpected and genuine, strengthened my resolve to maintain the boundaries I had established regardless of the emotional fallout. The weight that had pressed on my chest for days began to lift, replaced by a tentative sense of freedom. For the first time in my adult life, I was prioritizing my own well-being over family expectations, and despite the discomfort, it felt surprisingly right. Christmas Eve arrived with a light snowfall that blanketed Denver in pristine white. In years past, I would have been frantically checking weather reports for our travel route or coordinating last-minute details for our family gathering. Instead, I found myself driving through quiet streets toward Riverside Community Shelter, a canvas bag filled with wrapped packages on my passenger seat. The shelter occupied a renovated warehouse in an industrial district, its brick exterior brightened by holiday decorations and a hand-painted sign welcoming all. Inside, volunteers bustled about setting up tables and arranging food for the Christmas Eve dinner that would serve over 200 people experiencing homelessness. First-time volunteer asked a tall, gray-haired man who introduced himself as Thomas, the volunteer coordinator. His warm smile and firm handshake immediately put me at ease. "Is it that obvious?" I replied with a self-conscious laugh. "Most of our regulars know exactly where the aprons are kept," he explained, guiding me toward a storage closet. "But we're always grateful for new faces, especially during the holidays. What brought you to us?" The question was simple enough, but I hesitated, unsure how to explain my family situation without sounding bitter. "Change of plans," I finally offered. "Thought I'd try something different this year." Thomas nodded his eyes, reflecting understanding beyond my vague explanation. "Well, you've come to the right place for different. No 2 days are ever the same here." He assigned me to meal service, working alongside a diverse group of volunteers, ranging from college students to retirees. As we prepared to open the doors, Thomas gathered everyone for a brief orientation. "Remember, folks, we're not just serving food tonight. We're serving dignity, respect, and community. Every person who walks through that door has a story as complex and valuable as your own. Listen if they want to share. Give space if they don't. But always, always treat them as the fellow humans they are." His words struck a chord deep within me. How long had it been since I felt truly seen and respected within my own family? The irony wasn't lost on me that I might find more authentic connection among strangers at a homeless shelter than at the luxury cabin I had reserved for my relatives. The evening progressed in a blur of activity. I served mashed potatoes and gravy, refilled water glasses, and cleared plates. Between tasks, I found myself engaged in conversations that ranged from lighthearted to profound. An elderly woman named Martha shared stories of her career as a schoolteacher before medical bills claimed her savings and eventually her home. A young man called Darius explained his passion for poetry, reciting verses he had composed while staying at the shelter. "You're pretty good at this for a first-timer," observed a volunteer named Sarah as we restocked napkins. "Most newbies are overwhelmed by the end of the first hour." "I think I needed this more than I realized," I admitted. Focusing on others' needs puts my own problems in perspective. As the dinner service wound down, Thomas approached me with 2 cups of coffee. "Break time," he announced, gesturing toward a quiet corner. "You've been working non-stop for 4 hours." We sat on folding chairs, watching the shelter residents enjoying their meals and the live music provided by a local church group. The atmosphere carried a warmth that transcended the institutional setting, creating a genuine sense of community among people united only by circumstance and humanity. So Thomas began, ready to share what really brought you here on Christmas Eve, when most people are gathered around their own dinner tables. Something about his gentle directness broke through my reticence. I found myself recounting the entire situation, the Park City cabin dad's phone call, the cancellation, and my family's reactions. Thomas listened without interruption, his expression thoughtful. "Family dynamics are complicated beasts," he observed when I finished. I spent 20 years trying to please a father who viewed vulnerability as weakness and generosity as obligation. Took a heart attack at 52 to wake me up to the fact that I was living his version of my life instead of my own. How did you break the cycle? I asked, desperate for insight from someone who had navigated similar terrain. Started saying no to things that damaged my soul, even when saying yes would have been easier. Set boundaries and held them even when people pushed back. Most importantly, built connections with people who appreciated me for myself, not for what I could provide them. He gestured around the shelter. Found my real family here among people who have nothing material to give, but offer authentic connection freely. Been volunteering here 15 years now, and it's healed parts of me that therapy couldn't touch. As our conversation continued, Thomas invited me to join his actual family for Christmas Day lunch. Nothing fancy, just good food and better company. My wife makes enough for an army anyway, and our door is always open to new friends. The invitation, unexpected and genuine, brought a lump to my throat. I wouldn't want to intrude on your family time. Family time is whenever good people gather with open hearts, he replied simply. Think about it. Offer stands either way. Later that night, as I drove home through the snowy streets, my phone rang. Mom's name appeared on the screen, and I answered with surprising calmness. Merry Christmas Eve, Mom. Carl, her voice sounded strained. We need to talk about tomorrow. Your father has booked a restaurant for Christmas lunch, but it doesn't feel right without you there. I have plans tomorrow, I replied gently. I'm volunteering at the shelter again in the morning, and I've been invited to lunch with some new friends afterward. New friends, on Christmas. The concept seemed foreign to her. But what about family? I'm taking some time to reassess what family means, Mom, whether it's about blood relation or mutual respect. Her silence spoke volumes. Finally, she whispered, I miss you, Carl. Christmas doesn't feel the same. I miss you too. But this separation is necessary right now. After we hung up, Jason called. Unlike Mom's emotional appeal, his voice carried a surprising note of admiration. Just checking in, he said casually. Dad booked some overpriced restaurant for tomorrow. Rebecca's kids are throwing tantrums about not getting a white Christmas. Thought you'd enjoy the update. I laughed, despite myself. Sounds about right. How are you doing with it all? Actually, I've been thinking a lot about what you said, about setting boundaries and self-respect. It's making me reconsider some things in my own life. His words confirmed what I was beginning to understand. My stand wasn't just for me. It potentially created space for others in the family to examine their own patterns and make different choices. Christmas morning arrived with a text from Rebecca, the first communication since I'd canceled the trip. Your absence is noticeable. Perhaps we can talk after the holidays about expectations going forward. Not warm, not apologetic, but a tiny crack in her usually impenetrable facade. As I prepared to return to the shelter, I reflected on how differently this Christmas was unfolding from what I had planned. Instead of seeking approval in a luxury cabin, I was finding connection in a repurposed warehouse. Instead of walking on eggshells around my father, I was establishing healthy boundaries. The pain of family rejection remained, but alongside it grew something unexpected, a sense of authentic peace I had never before experienced during the holidays. January arrived with Denver's characteristic blend of brilliant sunshine and frigid temperatures. The holiday decorations came down, regular routines resumed, and the emotional intensity of December began to fade into memory. I had declined Dad's Christmas Day call and Rebecca's stilted invitation for New Year's Eve drinks, choosing instead to maintain the distance that felt increasingly healthy rather than punitive. 3 weeks into January, Mom called with an invitation I hadn't expected. I'm hosting a family dinner this Saturday, she announced with forced cheerfulness. Nothing fancy, just pot roast and your favorite apple pie. It would mean a lot if you came. The invitation triggered immediate anxiety. Will Dad be there? Of course, she replied, a note of tension entering her voice. He's your father, Carl. This separation has gone on long enough. It's time to mend fences. In the past, this appeal would have been enough to make me acquiesce, prioritizing family harmony over my own well-being. But 3 weeks of boundary enforcement had strengthened my resolve. Has Dad acknowledged what happened? Has he apologized for lying about the Park City trip? or for uninviting me from Christmas. Her hesitation told me everything. He's willing to move forward if you are. Sometimes in families we need to let things go without dissecting every word said in anger. I'm not asking for a dissection, Mom. Just a basic acknowledgement and apology. Please come, she persisted. For me, if not for him. I miss having my whole family together. The genuine pain in her voice tugged at my heart. While I wasn't willing to pretend nothing had happened, I recognized that completely cutting off contact with my family wasn't the goal either. Creating healthier dynamics required presence and communication, not just distance. I'll come, I finally agreed. But I need you to understand that I'm not going back to the old patterns. Things need to change. Saturday evening arrived with a knot of tension in my stomach as I pulled into my parents' driveway. The modest two-story house looked exactly as it always had, yet everything felt different. I was different. The person who entered this house now carried 3 weeks of boundary-setting experience and a new understanding of self-worth. Mom answered my knock with an enthusiastic hug, pulling me inside, where the familiar scent of pot roast filled the air. "Everyone's in the living room," she whispered. "Jason just arrived too." I followed her through the hallway, pausing briefly to examine the family photos that lined the walls. So many forced smiles and stiff poses, visual evidence of the tension that had always simmered beneath our picture-perfect surface. Dad sat in his usual armchair, newspaper folded beside him. He glanced up as I entered, his expression unreadable. "Carl," he acknowledged with a nod, neither warm nor explicitly hostile. Rebecca perched on the sofa, wine glass already in hand. "Nice of you to join us," she offered, her tone carrying the faintest hint of sarcasm. Only Jason's greeting felt genuine. He rose from his seat by the window, clasping my shoulder with a smile. "Good to see you, man." The atmosphere carried a brittle quality, everyone hyper-aware of the Christmas conflict, but determinedly avoiding direct mention of it. As we moved to the dining room for dinner, the conversation remained superficial. Weather, local news, Rebecca's children's school achievements. No one mentioned Christmas Park City or the events that had transpired. Halfway through the meal, Dad cleared his throat. "So Carl, how's work these days? That software company still keeping you busy?" The question seemed innocent enough, but I recognized it as an attempt to redirect our interaction to safe territory. In the past, I would have gratefully seized this olive branch, eager to move past conflict without resolution. "Work is good," I replied evenly, "but I think there are more important things we need to discuss first." The table fell silent. Mom's fork paused midway to her mouth, and Rebecca's eyes narrowed in warning. Dad's expression hardened almost imperceptibly. "If you're referring to the Christmas misunderstanding, I think we can all agree it's water under the bridge now," he stated firmly. "It wasn't a misunderstanding," I countered, keeping my voice calm. "You explicitly uninvited me from a family gathering that I had organized and paid for. You also told everyone that you had arranged the Park City trip when you hadn't contributed anything toward it." Dad's jaw tightened. "I see you're still determined to make mountains out of molehills. This is exactly the negativity I was talking about." "Acknowledging reality isn't negativity," I replied. "And expecting basic respect isn't making mountains out of molehills. Perhaps this conversation would be better suited for another time." Rebecca interjected, her attorney voice in full effect. "We're supposed to be enjoying a family dinner." "That's the problem," I said, turning to include her in the conversation. "We keep postponing honest discussions in favor of pretending everything is fine. It's not fine. It hasn't been fine for years." An uncomfortable silence descended on the table. Jason caught my eye across the table and gave a subtle nod of encouragement. "I've spent years trying to earn approval through generosity," I continued. "Funding family vacations, buying expensive gifts, always being the one to compromise when conflicts arose. But I've realized that's not a healthy dynamic for any of us." Dad pushed his plate away. "So this is about money. You're keeping score of every dollar you've spent on the family." "No, it's about respect. About acknowledging contributions rather than taking them for granted. About treating each other with basic consideration rather than conditional acceptance." Mom reached for my hand. "Sweetheart, nobody takes you for granted. We all appreciate everything you do." "Do you?" I asked gently. "Because when I set a boundary about not funding a vacation, I wasn't welcome to attend, Everyone acted as if I was being selfish and unreasonable. Rebecca sipped her wine before responding. The timing was inconsiderate. People had made arrangements. The timing wasn't my choice, I reminded her. And nobody seemed concerned about my arrangements or feelings when Dad decided to uninvite me. Always the victim, Dad muttered, shaking his head. No, I corrected him. Not a victim anymore. That's the difference. I'm choosing how I respond to disrespect now rather than accepting it to keep the peace. The conversation might have devolved further, but Jason surprised everyone by speaking up. Carl's right, he stated firmly. We've all been playing our assigned roles for so long that we can't even see how dysfunctional it is. Dad controls everything, Mom smooths things over, Rebecca plays the perfect daughter, I rebel, and Carl tries to buy approval. It's not healthy for any of us. Dad turned to him with a scowl. Since when are you a family therapist? I'm not, Jason shrugged. But I've been thinking a lot since Christmas about why our family only functions when everyone stays in their lane. Why we can't just be authentic with each other, without all the manipulation and power plays. Rebecca set down her glass with more force than necessary. That's an extreme characterization. Is it? I asked. Then why was everyone so quick to believe Dad had funded the Park City trip when he's never paid for a family vacation in his life? Why did no one question that narrative? The direct question landed like a stone in still water, sending ripples of discomfort around the table. Mom studied her plate, Dad shifted in his chair, and even Rebecca looked momentarily discomfited. Because it was easier, Mom finally admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Easier than acknowledging the patterns we've created. Her honesty, unexpected and vulnerable, created an opening for genuine conversation. For the next hour, we talked more openly than we had in years. No one stormed out, though. Dad grew increasingly quiet as the discussion progressed. By the time Mom served apple pie, something had shifted in the family dynamic. Nothing was resolved completely. Dad never offered the apology I had hoped for, though he grudgingly acknowledged that communications could have been clearer regarding Christmas. Rebecca maintained that I had overreacted but conceded that Dad shouldn't have taken credit for my contribution. Mom oscillated between defending Dad and validating my feelings, her peacekeeper role deeply ingrained. But something fundamental had changed. I had spoken my truth without backing down, and the family hadn't imploded as a result. The world hadn't ended because I prioritized self-respect over approval-seeking. As we prepared to leave, Jason pulled me aside in the hallway. That took guts, he said admiringly. Standing your ground with Dad isn't easy. It gets easier with practice, I replied. How are you doing? You were pretty upset about Christmas. He smiled ruefully. Actually, I've been thinking about what you said about boundaries. I've decided to stop asking Mom and Dad for financial help. Got a steady gig at a jazz club downtown teaching guitar lessons during the day. It's not much, but it's mine, you know. His words reflected my own journey. I know exactly what you mean. As I drove home that evening, I realized the painful Christmas conflict had catalyzed important changes not just for me, but potentially for our entire family system. By refusing to play my assigned role, I had created space for others to reconsider theirs. The months that followed brought gradual shifts in our family dynamics. Dad remained. Dad critical and controlling, but I no longer sought his approval with the same desperation. Mom began occasionally expressing her own opinions, rather than automatically deferring to his. Rebecca and I established a more honest, if sometimes tense, relationship. Jason flourished in his new independence, his music career, slowly gaining traction. When Christmas approached again, I declined to fund another extravagant family gathering. Instead, I invited anyone interested to join me, volunteering at Riverside Shelter on Christmas Eve, followed by a simple meal at my apartment. To my surprise, Jason accepted immediately, and Mom tentatively agreed to stop by the shelter for a few hours. Dad and Rebecca declined, opting for their own celebration, and that was okay too. Thomas, my mentor from the shelter, often reminded me that family healing rarely follows a linear path. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for your family is stop playing the role they've assigned you, he would say. It forces everyone to adapt to a new reality, where authentic connection becomes possible. I don't know if my father and I will ever fully repair our relationship. Some wounds run too deep for complete healing, but I no longer measure my worth through his approval or anyone else's validation. I've learned that sometimes walking away is the strongest way to stand up for yourself, and that true family, whether blood-related or chosen, is built on mutual respect rather than obligation or financial transactions. If you've ever found yourself sacrificing your self-respect to keep the peace in relationships, remember that healthy boundaries aren't selfish, they're necessary. They protect not just you, but everyone involved from harmful patterns that prevent authentic connection. The journey isn't easy, but the freedom on the other side is worth every difficult step. If my story resonated with you, please share your own experiences in the comments below. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family? What helped you find the courage to prioritize your well-being? Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more stories about navigating life's complicated relationships. Thank you for listening, and remember, you deserve to be treated with respect no matter what role you've been assigned in your family's story.